The Ram is now a dually. Oh yeah, I told you I was gonna do it. I did it. It is so much better now driving this beast around, like night and day difference. So all of you long-time followers of me who've gone through all my various vans and RVs that I've driven and lived in over the years, and you all know that I love the Dodge Ram vans. Actual Ram vans, not these new Italian-designed Fiat Ducato Ram ProMaster monstrosities. Like, what the hell's with those things? Now, no offense to anyone that's watching this that might own one of those, but this is a sexy looking van. This is modern and sleek and tough looking. What the heck is this? Yeah, don't even get me started. Anyways, you know I like the North American chassis. I like the stuff that's designed and built in North America. Ram vans are Canadian vehicles as well, so not Italian, not made in Mexico. And they kept the same body for 32 years. The side, the lines, the sheet metal, the doors, the windows, they're same pretty much for 32 years. They just changed the front end and the dashboard a couple of times, and the lights, you know, some aesthetics. But the actual body is the same over all those decades, which is a huge bonus. It's a positive. It's a good thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix, and parts are interchangeable from year to year. I love that about the Ram vans. I love it so much that I have another one. See right there, I got my shorty Ram van as well, a Ram 1500, and I drive that thing around every day. All the North American full-size vans, though, had one flaw, and that's mostly Ford and Dodge. Ford Econoline and Dodge Ram vans, and to a lesser extent the Chevy and GMC vans as well. The flaw was that they were available in the extended 15-passenger versions, and they were very susceptible to rollover accidents, and it actually caused quite a few deaths in North America. The Dodge and Ford vans had the highest, the Ford especially had the most amount of rollover accidents causing deaths, but both the Ford and Dodge, the flaw was just the center of gravity is very high, and the extended part of the vans were over behind the back wheel wells. The wheelbase is quite short, and they extend the van by a few feet over the back and have people sitting in the back, and also all the weight on them apparently was on one side. The passengers were pretty much all on the driver's side, while the aisle was on the passenger side, so the weight was disproportionately on one side of the vehicle. So if you had to slam on your brakes on the highway, you lose control of the van, it rolls over, blah 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 blah. They were terrible for that. The other thing is, when they converted them into camper vans like this, the Class B motorhomes, even if they're not a wide body like this, they put a high top on it, they add all the appliances, all the weight, and now it's the same thing basically. You got to be careful, you don't want to roll that thing over, right? This one is super wide, super tall, has a lot of weight, and it had single wheels because Dodge never made a dually van. Neither did Ford, neither did Chevy. None of them made a full-size van with a dually option. They should have. For quite a while, a lot of churches and schools and things using these vans were doing it aftermarket, converting them to dualies. Well, I found the company that did the dually or offered the dually conversion adapters for the rear wheels, the same ones that Explorer used on all of their motorhomes. Remember, I had an Explorer van a few years ago? It was a dually. Exact same adapters as this. All aftermarket, all from the same company, called Aerocraft. And they're still in business. They're still in business because they sell dually adapters for all sorts of vehicles, and including brand new pickup trucks. So they were able to manufacture and send me off a pair of adapters for the Dodge Ram van. I had to change all the wheels because the original wheels and tire width from the factory, from Chrysler, they're a little bit wider than duals, which is usually the case, that single wheels are a little bit wider, and there wouldn't be quite enough clearance on these vans. So you have to switch all the wheels out for Ford F350 wheels from a certain era, I think in 1985 to 1998 or something like that. So they're easy to find. Any wheel shop could order them in for you. You can just order them online as well. You can go on Marketplace and try to find a used set of them. I did that, but I decided I could always just find 4, 5, or 6 wheels. I could never find 7 all in good condition. And if I'm going to spend this kind of money and do this to this vehicle, I want to do it right. So I ordered 7 brand new wheels, 6 for the vehicle and 1 spare. Now you can also delete your spare. See, I've got the spare tire still on the back there. You can delete it because you've literally got 2 spare tires now with the dual wheels. If one of your fronts goes flat, you can take one off the back, put it on the front, and drive to your destination or back home to where you have your spare tire or whatever. And if one of the backs goes flat, which by the way, this wheel, a few weeks ago, I drove up here to my property and I heard that dreaded sound of the hissing, the sound of something in my tire, and it was a little screw that I had driven over. So the tire was losing air, so it was the outer dual. So I just drove the van, the inner dual. I just drove the inner tire up onto a block of wood and removed the wheel in 2 minutes. You didn't even need to use a jack. I didn't even need to use a jack. Just pulled the wheel off, put the spare on, good to go. Now I can go get the other tire patched up. Still got a spare. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm rambling about that. But I bought all new wheels. And then, of course, you have to buy all new tires. So that's the main expense. And people are like, whoa, is it expensive to get the adapters? The adapters were not too bad. I think altogether it was around $1,000 because I also got matching adapters for the front wheels. The reason for that is I want all the wheels and tires to be identical on the vehicle, front and back, so you can swap you can swap them all around, and you can also do a proper rotation. The Explorer motorhomes, like my old van there, they cheaped out and only did the adapters on the back. So you got the dual wheels on the back, but you got different size tires and wheels on the front of all the Explorers. So you can't swap the front wheel for the back and vice versa on the Explorers. So I decided, no. If I'm going to do the back, I'm going to do the front too. So they're all matching. Your main expense is the new tires. Cost more than the wheels, that's for sure. So 7 new tires, 7 new wheels. That's your main expense. So I can't give you an exact amount because, man, that can vary depending on what kind of tires you want and what kind of wheels you want. Like, you know, your mileage may vary on that. But that to give you an idea of how much it's going to cost you to convert one of these vans. It's not just Dodge vans you can do this to. You can also convert Ford Econolines and the Chevy G Series and the Express and Savannah vans as well. So that's the main expense. Now, the other thing you're going to have to do to be legal, and of course to save pedestrians' eyeballs and people who are driving behind you, is you need to have the proper mud flaps and fender flares. Legally, you can't have your tire in a lot of places, like here. You can't have the tire sticking out past the body, and you also don't want to. When I got this done, I drove it up here. It was only a few blocks from the auto shop, and I didn't have this on it yet. And the whole side of the van was just mud because it was raining and I had to drive through some dirt. But anyways, I ordered these flexi flares. They are 4-inch rigid rubber, kind of flexible flares, which are meant to be universal. So you can put them on anything, and they make it actually look pretty much factory. It's great. So you just look at this, even got that rib there. I mean, it looks fantastic. So that was an easy thing to do. Now, I can get away with just that 4-inch flare because I already have an extra wide body van, which is quite a bit wider than the factory van, as you can see. So I think, that's something like 7 inches on each side wider than a regular Ram van. So therefore, I didn't have to get any big custom fiberglass, fender flares custom made for this, because you're not going to be able to buy any fender flares for Dodge Ram vans or Ford Econoline vans. Like there's no one that sells them. You'll have to pay some shop to make something custom for you, which is going to cost probably a couple $1,000s alone. So I was happy that I could get away with that because I already had a wide body. So that's an advantage if you have a wide body. And then of course you have to get the dually mud flaps. I should have washed it before I showed you this on video, but whatever. They work great. So that was just off Amazon. Those were just the cheapest mud flaps. I think they're like 60 or 65 bucks. The shop was able to install those for me in like a couple hours or something like that. So anyways, now, what's the difference? All the difference in the world. These vans, as anyone who's ever owned them and lived in them and traveled in them will tell you, are not exactly the best thing for for highway travel, especially if it's windy or if semi-trucks are driving past you or whatever. They're quite, you know, they like to roam all over the road, and steering's pretty loose. It's just the way, it's just the nature of the beast. I'm used to it because I've always driven them. So, but being a big wide one like this, you know, it's always a little bit sketchy when you're flying around a corner, if you've got any speed, and you're always worried too, if you've got to hit your brakes, are you going to have a rollover? Now, what a difference. I can drive this now in a windstorm when people in little cars are having trouble, you know, controlling their cars when it's windy on a flat stretch of highway. It just happened a few weeks ago. It was so windy, the ferries were canceled to come to the island here. And I was on the mainland, and people in their cars were having trouble keeping themselves in the lane on the stretch of highway I was on. And I was just flying right past them. You could drive this now with your pinky finger on the steering wheel, and it just goes straight. It's unbelievable the difference in stability it has now made, and traction. Now, people will tell you, well, with pickup trucks at least, dualies are not necessarily better traction than singles on gravel and snow and things like that. Now, that may be true, but those are mostly people talking about pickup trucks again. I already have, as you know, another dually van. And this van, this Chevy, it's a cutaway chassis, so it's technically a Class C, and it had the dualies on it from the factory. And this one comes up my steep driveway. I have like a 13 or 14% grade on my driveway, so it's quite steep, and it's loose gravel. All right, when I drive this little red van up here, sometimes I got to floor it at the bottom of the hill and try to get straight up without spinning my tires on the gravel, even though it's got great tires. The purple van never had a problem. It just climbed right up at any speed and never complained and never skid. The white van, same thing as the red van there. I would have to floor it at the bottom, and quite often I'd start skidding when I got halfway up the driveway. It was not my tires. The tires have fantastic tread, the original tires. Just didn't have quite enough traction. As soon as I put the dualies on this, comes up the driveway just like the purple van. No complaining, never skids. I don't have to floor it at the bottom anymore. I can go slow, I can go fast, I can go medium speed. It doesn't matter. The traction is night and day difference. It's way better than singles. There's absolutely no debate about that. I now have two vans that prove that theory. And the vans, it's different than a pickup truck. There's a lot of weight in the back. There's holding tanks, appliances, things like that. So anyone that tells you that traction is worse with a dually, ask them if they're talking about a full-size motorhome, a camper van, like this. Okay, it's a different argument altogether. I would do it all over again, even if it costs double. That's how much better this is now. So there you go, guys. You can still do it. I will put the link in the description below to Aerocraft if you have a Dodge, Ford, or Chevy. If you want to convert it to dually, you can still do it. The only thing is, if you don't have a wide body, you might have to get some custom big fender flares made to cover your tires properly. That's about it. Keep on rocking in the free world, everyone.